This week, what's it like to design an RV? We have debuted the new 37RVMILES floor plan from our friends over at Sabre, and we're talking on this episode about how that whole process went. I'm not talking about the unit itself, but what it's like to actually make the choices and the decisions and all the stuff that goes into building an RV. This is RV Miles. Chances are you've seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox designs and manufactures the best towing products in the industry. Just look around. You'll find them on highways, in campgrounds, and anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. From award-winning tow bars and base plates to a full line of weight distributing hitches, adjustable ball mounts, and now they have fifth wheel hitches too. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. Visit blueox.com for more information. Harvest Host is a membership that allows RVers to take a rest from the road and enjoy unlimited overnight stays at over 5,100 unique locations in North America, like breweries, farms, attractions, wineries, and much more. Easily plan and book your next RV trip and enjoy over $1,500 in exclusive member benefits by joining Harvest Host. Get 15% off your first year of membership with the code MILES. That's MILES. Go to harvesthost.com to become a Harvest Host member today. Welcome to episode number 348 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby. And we are two RVers who, along with our three boys, Jack, Ethan, and Henry, have been crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk all things RV and outdoors, from industry news to travel destinations, designing an RV, and so much more.
Do want to begin here this week with saying we're recording this episode a week in advance of when we put it out, which we rarely do.
We're usually recording it about one day before.
But we need the time. So if any major thing happens in the world and we don't allude to it in this episode, that's why.
Future Jason and Abby will grab it when we get back into town. But right now,
this episode will come out after or right at the end of the Florida RV Super Show. And we will have been there, but we haven't been there yet as we're talking to you.
Because nothing makes more sense post-holiday season when you already don't know what day is what and if you should even get dressed for the day. Nothing makes more sense than trying to record a bunch of episodes back to back in the same day and then make it sound like you're not recording a bunch of episodes back to back on the same day. Yes, we just changed
my shirt.
I'm wearing a sweater now. We're wearing
defeats the
sweater.
Purpose by telling you that we did that, but hey. Because
we're going to screw this up at some point. At some point, we're going to talk about now. Yeah. Okay? And we're supposed to be talking about then. But we're going to end up talking about now.
We're just going to pretend we're just talking about now.
Yeah, we're talking about now.
So we're going to talk about our experience through this whole process of making all the decisions that we made in speccing out this fifth wheel that we've built. And I'm excited to get into that because we learned a heck of a lot through this process. You know, all of us RVers out there are like, why don't people who actually camp in these things design them?
We don't sound like that.
Yeah, we do.
You always do.
Yeah, we
do.
The
RVer voice. And I have yet to ever meet anyone come up to me and
that's the grumpy YouTuber comment voice. And believe me, I've been that
YouTuber.
person. Not YouTuber. Grumpy YouTube commenter voice.
But I also argue that that's the grumpy YouTuber.
Sure.
Because there's just as many grumpy YouTubers out there.
I've been that person that has said that, right?
Some of you are close to making my black tank. I've put you on warning out there, YouTube world. There are a couple of you out there that are getting real close.
Obviously, we learned that on many fronts that we're wrong about some of that stuff. And on many fronts, we're right about some of that stuff as well. But it was a really interesting process and excited to get into that. But first, we have a listener question, right?
We do. So we got this really cool email now. From Connor in Seattle. And it was actually a really interesting and timely question. And I thought it would make for a really nice discussion before we drop into talking about the rig. But he wrote and he said, I'm emailing because I have a question based on one of my camping observations and some of the notes you had in episode 342 about planning your 2025 travels. Your black tank from the episode was something you heard from your friends at the Mobile Internet Resource Center that the wait list for Starlink is back. Obviously, I've seen that Starlink is the top choice internet option for many RVers on the road and in remote areas. But have you seen or used Wi-Fi options that many state parks and other campgrounds offer internally? Or have you heard from others that are using these? He goes on to say that he was at the South Padre Island KOA in Texas last year and that they had pretty good Wi-Fi for the campground. It was free for the basic plan and $5 a day for high-speed video calls and streaming. Do you think campground Wi-Fi might become more popular in the future for people who want to either camp, RV, or work from the outdoors? Or do you think Starlink is eventually destined to take over the internet market at campgrounds? Or maybe would it be possible for the campgrounds to get Starlink and then offer it as a Wi-Fi option to campers? I'd love your thoughts on the future of internet at RV campgrounds. Once again, thanks so much for the podcast and recommendations, Connor from Seattle. Connor, thank you so much for that question.
So if you had asked us 4 or 5 years ago about campground Wi-Fi,
we would have been, what's that?
we would have said, just, yeah, I mean,
Why are you asking me about that?
There was several years ago, and still lots of places, but particularly several years ago, you would get lots of campgrounds that advertised that they had Wi-Fi as an amenity. And then you would arrive, and if you could open your email, you were lucky.
If you were even parked close enough to be able to get a signal, a brief glimmering hope of a signal, you are lucky.
And we would always say, stop advertising that you've got, Wi-Fi throughout the campground. Just put some really good Wi-Fi in your main building so people can take their laptop or their phone or whatever up there and do a little emailing if need be, download a Netflix movie if they want to, whatever it might be, and deal with that. Because it's very expensive to not only have good Wi-Fi that all of these different people camping in the campground can use, but also to broadcast it throughout the campground and for it to get through, be a powerful enough signal to get through all the RVs.
Yeah, you have got to be able to make sure everyone can stream Yellowstone. Okay, you do not want to upset an RVer if they cannot watch
the thing. I mean,
Costner.
but people do, when you say you have Wi-Fi, they expect they'll be able to watch movies on it. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, watching a movie or video or whatever, YouTube even, is such a dramatically larger use of data than scrolling Facebook, right? Or doing your email or whatever else, reading blog posts and all that sort of stuff. Video takes a lot of bandwidth. Anyway, the campground industry, over the course of the COVID pandemic boom, with a lot of people going to working from wherever, working from the road, the campground industry has definitely caught on to the need that people want really good, robust Wi-Fi. Does that mean everybody has it? No. But there are a lot more places now, a lot more specifically RV resorts that do have really good Wi-Fi. And in the past, we would have never even tried. We just pull in, we don't even try their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, don't bother.
We would just be like, we're getting on our whatever it is, Starlink or cellular, whatever it might be.
Hotspot.
But now we'll try it out first. And often we won't have to set up our Starlink if we're at a nice RV resort because the Wi-Fi is good. And that's been great. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. The public lands segment, the state parks and the national parks and all that stuff, they've lagged dramatically on this front. And I wouldn't expect it to ever get incredible. But there is a move to put internet access in those spaces, mainly for safety.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things. It's not just safety, internet access and cellular service. There's a plan to put a lot of cellular service in particular, but also internet access near campgrounds and stuff at Yellowstone National Park. And people get kind of angry about this because they're thinking cell towers and a lot of that infrastructure.
But haven't you seen the ones that look so natural, that look like trees?
They're so awful.
That's going to be so beautiful.
But what people don't realize is that Yellowstone already has these giant, ugly radio towers that like reflect radio waves that are on top of all these mountains and stuff in the park to be able to send signals around so the rangers can contact each other. And they can get rid of those now with cellular technology. Also, the ability for a tourist who is there to find the answer to the question they have on the app for the park, or sign up for a tour, or change and adjust their camping nights, whatever it might be, without having to go to a ranger, saves a lot on the manpower needed to deal with all of the thousands of people that are in the park on a given day. So it actually reduces the amount of infrastructure and helps with safety issues too. You know, if somebody is in an accident or whatever, they've got the ability to make a phone call and get some help. And so we're going to see more of that happening. So I think in sort of the national park type places, it's going to be more 5G cell service. And there are cellular options like TravelFi that you can go out there with. Starlink is great. Is it going to take over this industry entirely? No. The vast majority of people that camp don't have the need to spend that kind of money on that system. They're going out for 2-3 weeks total time, 20 days, maybe less really is the average a year. And for them to invest that kind of money and that kind of equipment for something that they just don't need, it's not necessary. But the campgrounds are going to benefit if they're the choice that has the good Wi-Fi, and the reviews all say they have the good Wi-Fi and stuff. Starlink is, as you alluded to in your comment, making it possible for some remote campgrounds to install the business version of Starlink and give people access to better internet in some really remote campgrounds where there's no cell service and all that sort of stuff. So it's a mix of a lot of stuff, but campground Wi-Fi will continue to get better, and it is getting better.
Awesome. Well, if you have a question for us and you would like to email us, we would be more than happy to respond on the show here, or just to get back to you personally. But you can just email us at editor@rvmiles.com, and we will do our best to answer it for you.
RV Miles is sponsored by eTrailer. eTrailer's upgraded all of their product listings and fit guides for 2025 vehicles. At eTrailer, they know that upgrading to a new vehicle is a big step. We just did it, and one that comes with its own set of challenges. Whether you're wondering, will my old roof rack work with my new ride, or how do I make sure I'm ready to tow the moment I hit the road, they get it. Transitioning to a new vehicle shouldn't mean starting from scratch when it comes to your gear. We just upfitted our new truck with a new tonneau cover and a bed rug from eTrailer, and more is on the way for sure. eTrailer has 2025 fits for the products you already know and trust, with insights from enthusiasts and tailored solutions for the latest vehicles. They're here to ensure that your new adventure starts smoothly. Whether you're already cruising in your 2025 vehicle or planning ahead to make your future purchase worry-free, you can count on eTrailer to provide the gear, advice, and confidence you need to hit the road without hesitation. Visit the link in the description below, or visit eTrailer.com.
All right. We need to, again, rewind back to the beginning of 2024. These last couple of episodes have been about looking back so that we can look forward. And we want to talk today about lessons learned designing an RV. Is it really that hard to design an RV? How on earth, Jason and Abby, did you go from the beginning of a year, really through half of the year, talking about, we want a 30-foot RV, we want it, X, Y, and Z. And then when it finally comes to fruition, your family's rig is 43 feet. How on earth did y'all get there? And was it just lazy that got you there?
Well, yeah. I mean, and I think we've talked about that a bit too.
And we have. You can go back to that episode. You can go back to 345, and you can hear that whole conversation about how we got there. But I think part of it is this conversation. Designing the RV also got us there because, and we're going to get into it, because of what we learned in the design process of needs, wants, expectations, and reality.
So let's talk about some of the things that we wanted.
Yes.
First of all, so we have tall kids. We have long thought that many of the bunkhouse options out there, particularly the mid bunks, which tend to be a common choice for families, often leave a lot to be desired in the length of the bunk. Really, it comes down to, can a tall kid or an adult fit in this? I mean, Jack is going to be legally an adult later this year.
Yeah.
But also, you're not always traveling with kids. You might have friends staying with you, whatever it might be. We wanted something that our larger children or adults could sleep in comfortably.
Yeah. So that was a real driving force for us. We wanted a space that our entire family could have a communal space, a community space together.
And that's one of the big problems with a lot of bunkhouses or sort of 2-bedroom style units, is that the living space ends up being so small.
You sacrifice the living space in order to provide a bigger sleeping space for multiple adults in a unit. And that is where we outgrew the 37FLL. We absolutely adore that front living in the 37FLL. It is just a fantastic family space. But where we outgrew for 5 people was the ability with the loft. The above the main bedroom loft was great for if it was just, Ethan and Henry.
There are 2 lofts in there. There's one sort of larger loft above the primary bedroom, and then there's a smaller loft above the bathroom. And that one is just too close to the ceiling for Henry.
Yeah, it's not realistic anymore. I mean, with a little person, absolutely.
But it's the same issue in a lot of these mid-bunk floor plans, where they put that bunk so high up that it's just uncomfortable.
Slide.
And then when you think about putting a thicker mattress in, it's just impossible.
Yeah. So these were a few of the wants. And then we were still really, a big want was to try and stay small. We wanted to stay, we loved how nimble we were with Bexy. But here's where when I think back now, and hindsight is 2020, right? When I think back on everything, all the conversations we had behind the scenes, that you and I constantly talking, we wanted to be nimble like Bexy, but we wanted all the comfort and the joy that the 37FLL brought us.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult.
Well, and I think when
marry
it came
those two
down
together.
to it, it was never really a pain in the butt for us to travel with the FLL.
Oh, heck no. Go back and look at all the pictures we've posted of that thing.
There are times when we couldn't get to a certain campground, but there was something else nearby. But we were pretty much able to go where we wanted to go.
Yeah. So
now, we're not people that are like, we insist on having a pull through and we're willing to cram ourselves in there. But we were able to get where we wanted to go.
I am on record multiple times as saying, if there is an overhang in the back of that campground,
we're using it. So another thing we really wanted, though, was as much road access as possible. So when the slides are in road mode, as our friend Josh, the RV nerd, calls it, we wanted to be able to at least access our bathroom and our kitchen, so we could make lunches when we're on travel days, and we could use the bathroom on travel days, because that is a big pain in the butt sometimes. And it would have been nice if we could have access to our sleeping areas. We didn't end up choosing to go that route, but that is where some of the sacrifices began. And I think the first thing to say here is that all of RV design, we have learned, it's just an exercise in sacrifices.
Yes.
Making a choice to have one thing means that you can't have the other, or it will be very difficult to have the other.
Well, and to be clear, we have access to our bedroom space. We do not have access to the kids' bunk space.
The living room and the kids' bunk space, we don't have access to. Yeah.
So the design process, so that's our backstory on all of this. And that's kind of how we ended up with our wants. And then, so when this was brought to us and this was proposed, we were given a blank piece of paper.
And actually no help. It was really
none.
Just draw some stuff up.
Literally, just go be Simon.
Which is kind of how I wanted
drawings.
to do it. Actually, I have a little experience in, drawing floor plans for set designs and stuff. So I knew where to start. I can pull up some software, and I use SketchUp, and I started drawing up some ideas for us to consider. And there were a lot of them.
That sounds so cliche and simple. Like we just sat down and started drawing.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what we did. We took elements from things that we liked off of other rigs, things that we liked from our own rigs, things that we liked from building out our bus. I think that was another kind of confidence booster a little bit for us to feel comfortable doing this. We've already done this once. We've already designed something once and then built it ourselves. Now, granted, we had the shell of it. We weren't trying to create a shell. We already knew that we have this much space to work with. So that's how it started. Was Jason just got on SketchUp, and from a blank canvas, he would start creating, and he would bring something to me. And then I would make a suggestion, or I would say, you know what, this is and a lot of back and forth. Can we try this? Or what is this going to look like when we close this up? How long is this actually looking? Yeah. And that was a real big chunk of the early days. And we learned really quickly that if we think it's going to fit, like if we think it's going to work, like 60% of the time it's actually not.
Or it's going to be significantly longer than we think it is. Like,
yeah,
you don't realize that the front cap of a fifth wheel, basically from the very nose to where you can start building anything, it's about 2 feet. That's a lot of space there. The back wall has a decent thickness. All the individual walls have decent thicknesses to them. Even though they seem thin, they are, but when they add up, they have different thicknesses to them.
We learned a lot about, in this process, we certainly know it in other areas of life, the domino effect. We would alter one thing because it was impeding something, or we couldn't have access to this, or we needed this to be a little bit longer for the boys, or we wanted to try that. And we would try this one, and then you would just watch how it impacted every other thing. And then you're having to go and make those adjustments. And it was really, we don't want this many slides. Wait, well, we don't want to slide over here. Well, if we don't have a slide over here, we can't have this. We were really trying
at first to not put any slides on the campsite side.
Yes, we ended up with 4 slides.
Well, we have one on that side, which frankly we would still be fine without having the dinette slide, but we're weird.
Yeah, we don't care about dinettes, but we know others do. So.
Well, I should not say dinette. It's not. I keep saying dinette, but it is a table and chairs
in a pantry.
We ended up with the deck on that side as well, which is a great use for it, I think. But I'm looking here at one floor plan we drew up that had the deck on it, but it had no slides on that side. And I thought maybe this one would be like 36 feet or so. And I think this is an interesting layout that I drew up here.
But there is no pantry space.
There's no pantry space. And
you cannot give someone, a family, a rig of this size with a refrigerator of that size and a kitchen that looks like that, and then have nowhere for them to be able to stock up for a week's worth of food. And you might be thinking, that is crazy. You don't need all of those things. And for some people, you do not.
We do.
Our family, just speaking for our family, a week's worth of groceries for 5 people with an 11, a 14, and a 17-year-old. You need that space. You need the space because they are growing people, and they need to eat. And frankly, it's cheaper for me to buy all of that food and have it in the house than for us to be eating out constantly when we're RVing.
You wouldn't believe the amount of food we had crammed in the Ibex.
Oh man, we still went to Costco in the Ibex, and we would keep food sort of on the floor under the refrigerator and the microwave. And we would just have like the collapsible boxes, the cubes. Yeah. And we would keep food under the dinette bed in those cubes. We would slide them in there, and that would become storage for even more food because, again, we were, oftentimes without a grocery store for a while. But they're growing. And
Yeah.
frankly, man, I'm hungry. I want to eat.
We were originally also playing with the idea of making the front cap of the fifth wheel area, where normally most bedrooms are in the front cap, but not all of them. Like our FLL has the living room in the front cap area. We were toying with making that the bunk room. And I still think that's a really good option. And actually, I think there's
Open Range does it, I think.
There's a couple models out there that have a good bunk room. However, they make a very large bunk room up there. And we were at that point still trying to make something fairly small. So we wanted to have the kids have a decent bunk layout. And I still think this is a really good option. What we came up with is actually having 2 twin bunks run sort of lengthwise, like at floor level or slightly elevated on a platform with drawers under it. And then 1 twin bunk running across the front cap higher up with sort of a ladder in between those 2 other ones, giving each kid a large bed, but no additional like playroom type space, which was kind of, not what we ended up with, but I still think, that's a very viable option. And what we did through this process is came up with lots of ideas that we didn't use, but would be great in a different rig, maybe great in a different rig for us someday.
And so we probably did about 12 of these just ourselves before we showed them anything, showed anything to Sabre. And then when we did get to a place where we were ready to show and we thought we've got it, this coming in at 34, we got this. And we get it to the engineer, and there are a lot of things to learn about that. And they take it, and it comes back at, this is actually more like 38.
Yeah.
And
there's lots of stuff like the reveal of the slides, like the width of that the frame that goes around the slides. You need to have the slide can't go right up against a wall, of course. It's got to have space between it. Well, that space is a lot bigger than I think a lot of people, including me when drawing this up, think it is. Yeah.
And so that was really where obviously the designing process and that domino effect was quite eye-opening. And like any good creative endeavor, it's trial and error. And this is certainly what you're going to see in Tampa is nowhere near where this whole process started, but it's exactly where the process needed to end.
It's amazing just knowing that you want to have access to the refrigerator.
What you have to consider.
All the dominoes behind that.
Yeah. What you have to consider to have access to the refrigerator and what you have to sacrifice. Like the give and take here. Like if you want this is probably not going to be possible. So I'm on a lot of records. I'm on record as saying the reason why this is 43 feet is because I couldn't let go of the sun deck. Mm-hmm. Once that was shown to me and I started imagining the places we were going to be this spring and that deck being something that wasn't the large toy hauler back patio, because that was too much. And I didn't want a huge patio off the side either. Just a small little nook. And that became, well, if that is what we want, we have to make some decisions and some sacrifices somewhere else. And that became length.
But where it turned out though, if we didn't have that patio on this rig, it would be the same size.
Oh, I think we talked about it. And I think it would be at 40. And I know that is, we would have been able to get it, we thought, right under 3911.
But where would we lose that? Where would we gain that length? I think
we would have probably adjusted a few more things because we would have been picking length over patio.
But we would have lost in the living room.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a give and take. We would have been prioritizing the length of the rig.
But I think the choice, what we did is we came up with a unique solution where that patio is partially in the kids' bedroom
Mhm.
and partially in the living room, which
Yes.
actually works really well. And that kind of solved a lot of problems for us and allowed us to make this work in a reasonable size. But we come up with all these things. We go back and forth with the engineers and the staff at Sabre. They have ideas. We have ideas. We're also looking at like what a buyer wants, because we're not building something that is just the perfect RV for Jason and Abby, because an RV floor plan needs to appeal to, it doesn't need to appeal to a giant audience, right? There are lots of floor plans out there, but it needs to tick off more boxes than just the boxes that Jason and Abby want.
Yeah. So
Right.
we asked ourselves, kind of 3 questions. Is this just for us? So we would say, who are we designing for? Okay. And then these are it's 3 questions we'd ask off that. Is it just for us? Is it for a particular type of RVer? Or is it for multiple types of RVers? Like who are we designing for? Yes, of course, we're going to put things in there that we want, that we like, that we want to have in our own rig. But at the same time, we want those things to be universal as much as they possibly can. And how can we create a bunk space that doesn't have to necessarily be for a family of 5, but could be very comfortable for a family of 5, or comfortable for a family of 4 with a flex room. So that's where a lot...
And frankly, it'd be still good for a couple to be used as an office.
Absolutely. And then the next one was, now the next question for us became in the design process, how much is too much?
Yeah.
We don't want this thing to be so far out in its bells and whistles that it no longer becomes accessible to your average RVing family.
Well, and that was part of the parameters too of the whole thing. So
Yes.
I would feel like we're going to be explaining this to people a lot, that we, in this partnership with Sabre, set out to make a Sabre.
Yes.
We didn't set out to redefine what a fifth wheel is, like, or love that opportunity someday. But this was going to be something built in the Sabre factory using the frames that they use, which are really great. But using the building processes that they use, using the appliances that they use, everything that is on this in terms of equipment and appliances is stuff that is on their other units.
And this took us, these were all questions that we were asking because, again, the relationship at Sabre was one of such respect that they were totally hands off. They had no parameters for us when it came to what we could design, how long or how short it could be. We knew what they were capable of. And then they trusted what we were capable of. And so all of these conversations, this is, again, it's the design process. We were having all of these conversations and working through all of this stuff before we had laid one drawing down in front of them.
Yeah.
Because when we did come to them, we wanted to be coming from a place where we were like, look, we've really thought this through. And now you're going to see what we've been thinking. And now we want to know how you see this, what you think about this, and where this is excelling and where this needs improvement. And so we knew that we wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to be so expensive that only a select few people could be in it. We didn't want it to feel like it was only made for Jason and Abby.
Basically, I think we moved from what we thought was going to be a small RV for sort of like quick travel to thinking, maybe we should design what we would have wanted if we were full-time RVers again.
Yeah. And then, of course, the X factor in all of this is taking into consideration asking the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Asking the kids. Look, we need to ask kids more what they think about RVing and what they think about RVs. They have a lot of thoughts. They spend, if you're a family and you're out there RVing, your kid is spending just as much time in that RV as you are. And
the first feedback we ever got from our kids from our first RV, not the bus, but our first trailer, was my back hurts.
Yeah. And that was the first time that we really started to understand just how awful teddy bear mattresses are.
It's because manufacturers don't listen to kids, and they think that kids will sleep on anything. And that's a perception I think anybody could have. I don't want to knock the RV manufacturers for that. But like, I think the perception that we would have had too is, oh, they're just kids. They'll be fine on this. They'll sleep on anything. They'll sleep on the floor. But
our kids actually will. Our kids actually will sleep on the floor. But we were fortunate enough to have an 8-year history with these kids of RVing, the bulk of that being full-time RVers, and to ask them, and time again, what we heard always, that the time in Bussy, the 37 FLL, those were, but really the 37 FLL was really their happiest rig time.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to us. And part of that, and this is when we really started to focus in on this a little bit more, was the family living space.
Yeah. Again, it's I think a lot of shoppers of RVs think it's really important that bunk room has places for the kids to play video games and hang out. And this one has a little bit of that space.
And this one's got it, which is great.
But it doesn't have as much as it could have had. And it's not the depth of the bunk room isn't as big as a lot of them are, because we know that our family likes to hang out together.
Well, I think a really great example of that just in the Sabre world is if you go and look at their 38 DBL up against the 37 RVMILES, when it comes to bunk, that 38 DBL has like a tricked out back bunk area, really nice and big. And it is an absolute hangout space with a bathroom attached to it.
And that's another big sacrifice that had to be made, and something that we didn't care about at all.
No.
But because we often think that that's a wasted space. It's nice to have 2 bathrooms, of course. I mean, obviously in our apartment, we have 2 bathrooms, but we've never had 2 bathrooms in any of our homes that we have lived in with our kids, whether it's RV or apartments, until this year in the apartment we live in. 1 bathroom was totally doable for us. It might not be doable for you, but wasting that space, we could have done something like that again and lost either bunk room space or living room space. But not having that second bathroom gives us the opportunity to have more space together.
And that was one at the very beginning of talks when we kind of had these are our must wants, our must do's, and these are our must don'ts. The don't list, the second bathroom. We never came back to it. We never sketched a single thing up that had a second bathroom in it. When I bring up the 38 DBL versus the 37 RVMILES, what you're going to end up seeing is that the bunk space in the 37 RVMILES is just small enough that we have been able to get an L-shaped sofa into that living space, a big L-shaped sofa into that living space that all of us can be comfortably sitting together like we were in the 37 FLL. We took from the kids, talk to your RV kids, ask them what they want, ask them what they like. And we took that, we loved that 37 FLL front living space, and we could all be together. And we knew that had to get into the 37 RVMILES. So that was another one of those, we have to make this work. How? And that was really challenging. That was that living space until we figured out the configuration with the sun deck and the bunk room. Mm-hmm. That was a real challenge.
So a lot of this was informed, as we mentioned, when we first saw this sun deck, but also a lot of different other RVs. When I visited the open house that they hold for dealers in Elkhart at all the RV manufacturers every year in September, we saw a lot of things. I kept sending photos and videos back to Abby or FaceTiming her, and showing stuff. And that really sort of changed a lot of stuff. So once we had sort of, after that, we really kind of had a direction. And once we had that direction, we really kind of honed in on what this floor plan looks like. But
that's when Sabre really kicked in with their engineers, because once they really got to know us and got feedback from us on what we were looking for, they would come back and offer suggestions. Because I really want to make sure that we acknowledge their work too. Because
such a collaboration, not just us.
Yeah, we would send stuff off, and then they would come back with these suggestions that were never outside of the realm of what we were wanting. They were never trying to be like, well, we've got to have that. No one ever. They were always trying to give us more. No, and no one ever asked us to put a second bathroom in that thing. No. Where we asked for a second bathroom.
So we go through this process. We give it to the engineers. The engineers come back with stuff. The management staff at Sabre, they have ideas and stuff. We all are bouncing back ideas and forth. And eventually we come up with, sort of this rough draft of what this floor plan looks like. And you kind of feel like that's the end of the design process, but there's so much more after that, because so then the folks, like really the kind of the higher ups on the floor, so they actually like the foreman and stuff, started putting together a mock-up of at least what sort of the back half of this RV looked like. So not on a frame or anything, but they started building sort of just on the ground in the plant what the living room and bunk layout, because that was really the main question. We were kind of the kitchen was very clear because it's very similar to another floor plan of theirs, though with a lot of interesting, cool changes. And the front section, the bedroom and bathroom are identical to most of their floor plans. So they started mocking this up on the ground, and we got videos of that, and we did video calls and back and forth and figured out some solutions to some problems there. And then they order a frame. So that from that point, they know exactly what it's going to look like. They, in terms of size, they know the length and everything. They have the engineering drawings, and they go to the frame manufacturer and order a frame and have that built. Their frames are all done custom to each of their floor plans. And that frame comes in, and they start building the prototype, actually putting together what this unit is going to look like. And they can't do that all on site because the sidewalls are built off site at Sabre. And most Forest River plants do it this way, where the actual fiberglass sidewalls of the fifth wheel are formed and vacuum bonded and everything at a different plant that only does that. So they have those done, and they have them shipped over, and they start putting together the prototype, which is what you're going to see in Tampa. And in that process of building the prototype is actually where they start feeling out, okay, there's some extra room here. We can take this space and we can make it a bigger drawer or a bigger cabinet. This cabinet would look a lot better if it was shorter and wider. Yep. That sort of stuff is really hard to do. You can do it in like 3D model mock-ups.
But there's something about seeing it physically and like being able to put your hands on it and actually look at it with your eyes and be in the space and like kind of feel how that all is going to just feel the space itself, that you can't really account for it until you're there. And that was so fascinating to watch all of that play out. And then by the time that is ready, so then we come in to, you've probably seen some of this across social media. Our next step after that, after they have gone through that whole process, is for us to come in and see the prototype.
Yeah.
And when you walk in on something that you've spent a really long time trying to work on, and then you see what it looks like in real life for the first time, that is an incredible feeling.
And they were able to surprise us with a lot of these additional things where they find like extra room. They're like, oh, I can put a shelf there and whatever that we hadn't thought of because we hadn't been there yet to see it in person.
I mean, if you saw the reel that we put out of me walking in for the first time. There was an entire wall in front of me where there was not supposed to be anything. There was not supposed to be cabinets. There was not supposed to be a coffee bar. It was going to be just a blank wall. We didn't think we were going to have space for anything. To walk in and see that they knew I was kind of giving up the coffee bar
which is
area.
Your whole identity.
Yeah. I mean, I literally have an IV plugged in right now, just keeping me standing.
Well,
but to walk in and see that, you're shocked.
It was something we really wanted, and they knew that we were sacrificing, and we were hoping we could get, and we just had to cut it. But it still is a sacrifice. We actually lose access to our freezer because it's a lower drawer freezer.
Yeah.
We still have access to our fridge. Our fridge opens over it, but we lose access to our freezer, which is fine.
Domino's, you got to decide. And that to me on a travel day, the freezer, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I want it in the fridge. Let me get in the fridge. Let me get into my pantry. Let me be able to do those things. And I'll deal with the freezer when we get to the campground.
This is also the time in the process where they figure out where they can put outlets, where they can put like a spray port or another outlet on the outside,
all the outlets,
all these sorts of different things. They can't really figure out until this prototype process. Yeah. And once the prototype is built, then we come in, we see that, and they see it, and we can all work together to give feedback on, well, why maybe we should move this over here. Maybe this should be slightly adjusted this way. Maybe we need a handle here to get up into the bunks.
And again,
that sort of stuff.
You know who said we needed a handle to get up into the bunks? The 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Because the 11-year-old was the one who was going to climb up into the bunk and was going to live into that little bunk loft space. And he felt empowered to be able to say to his dad, like, I think we need a handle here. And that was awesome. It was like one of those moments where you think, again, this is a collaborative process.
And I went over to Bones, who's the shop foreman, and told him that Henry had said that. And instead of talking to me about it, he's like, I just went over to Henry and asked Henry to show him what he wants.
And he said, Henry, can you show me what you want?
It was great. And
that kind of like involved, I mean, obviously creating future RVers of America right there.
And this isn't the final step in the process, right? So we have a prototype now, and now we'll get to show this prototype off in Florida. People are going to give feedback on this prototype. Mm-hmm. They're not going to build our unit until mid-February. So there's time to give a little feedback on what people see, what potential buyers see, what the dealers see, and any changes that people might suggest can go into the unit that we will pick up in February. And then, of course, it will continue to evolve over time, whether we're in a new one in 2026 or not.
Yeah.
The 2026 model will then have, this will be sort of a mid-year model, right? So this will be a 2025, but 2026s will start to roll out in August. And I would imagine there will be some, whatever finalizations they make with our rig that happen in February. Then there will be again another round of changes that happen probably in the model year changeover in August.
And it's exciting because, we look forward to being a part of those conversations and, watching the evolution of this rig. And, we had always, again, because we go back to like, who were we designing this for, right? And, that seems, I think back on it and people might think, well, it's named after you. We did not ask it to be named after us. We thought it would end up just being called like 37RVM. Like we wanted just like real under the radar. And they asked if we would call it the 37RVMILES. Like they wanted to give it that name. And I just thought, again, like I think that this is the idea that all really good things are created when you have mutual respect and collaboration. We learned that for the 15 years that we worked in theater. The best shows we ever worked on were the shows where we worked as a collaborative team and community. When there was strife and when there was drama, those shows were awful, right? But when you respect the people you're working with and you respect the process and you're open to learning and you don't come in with just preconceived notions of how you think everything should go, then that's when magic happens. And, that happens across any industry. And this is the first time really at this kind of level, I think that we have both experienced that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Like we've certainly experienced it with the community, with all of you out there multiple times. But to experience that kind of really collaborative, creative process inside the industry, that was really cool and really insightful to be able to do that. And so I'm glad that we had that experience, that we've been able to share that. And I'm excited to see now how the community reacts to the rig and hearing people when we meet them in Tampa, hearing their feedback and maybe seeing things we didn't think of.
Which again, when this episode comes out, will have already happened.
We will have already gotten, there we go. I was living in now, and this is then. We will have already heard all you have to say at Tampa, and we will be processing all of it on a boat in the middle of the ocean. That was a deep sigh. So I think, is there anything else that you want to cover on that?
I just can't thank Sabre enough for the trust in us and this partnership. It's been great all along, and I just can't wait to get it out there and for us to get in it, really.
But let's hope this isn't the last time we get to put pen to paper and sketch out something for the RV industry in the future. So again, any other questions you might have for us about this, though, we're really happy to answer them. You can find us over in the RV Miles Facebook group, or maybe you've already asked them at Tampa.
Also, by the time this episode comes out, there should be a video tour of it on YouTube. So
that's right.
So
we got to do that.
Theoretically.
So it is time to check the level of our tanks, sponsored by our friends over at Liquefied RV Toilet Treatment, the No BS Toilet Treatment. They are giving away an RV now through May. We're going to have a link down in the show notes or the description of this video where you can go over and have a no purchase necessary entry to win yourself a travel trailer. Go do it. It would be awesome if someone from the RV Miles community won that Alliance Delta. Okay, Jace, what is in your black tank this week?
So, we've talked several times, I think, about how our neighborhood where the office is down here has been heavily under construction. This is an old-fashioned downtown that has really seen better days, and most of the storefronts are empty, and the city has taken that time to say, okay, we're going to tear all the streets up, pull everything. We're going to down to the sewers, replace all the sewer lines, everything. And they've been trucking along. I mean, there's been some complaints about the time it's been taken, but they actually just reopened several of the streets, and they only started it this past summer. And I think they've been doing a really great job. The centerpiece to this is the middle of the downtown area. We're talking like an area that spans 6 blocks or so, right? Mm-hmm. There is a little roundabout. So, but what they've done here, so this street that we're on here, that the office is on, has historically been like a bit of a like pedestrian mall, a block down from us, where they close it off often for festivals and stuff like that. And they're going to do that again. But in the middle of that, they put this little roundabout. And this roundabout is so small that our truck, it's a long bed, but it's just a pickup truck, cannot make it around that roundabout. It's so small and so tight. I could not make it around this roundabout. And I cannot imagine, because semi trucks come deliver stuff down here. Yep. There's all sorts of stuff that happens like that. I cannot imagine the problems that are going to ensue with this tiny little roundabout and people trying to figure out how to navigate this thing. It's going to be a zoo.
What is in your fresh tank this week?
The new Ram heavy duty trucks have been announced. Finally,
truck.
The 2500s and the 3500s have officially debuted, and I think they look great. I think they've done a good job. It's nothing mind blowing. I think they've done some smart things, like going to just a single diesel engine option, so you just get the high output diesel. There's no 2-level options there. But what I really like, and our friend JD over at Big Truck, Big RV, I watched his video rounding up all of his thoughts on them, really went into this a bit in his video on this subject, is they've kind of stopped playing the best in class specs game. And it seems like the truck industry is kind of moving away from that a little bit, but this has been a problem for years and years. It's just like, okay, 2023, they announced, okay, now it's got 50 more foot-pounds of torque, and nothing changed. They made a software change, right? They always intended to do that. And there's always been this battle for best in class. And like, these things can tow like 37,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Who's towing that? For very few people, does it matter that you have one of the 3 major truck brands that has the best towing capacity? Payload maybe matter a little bit more to you. And there's a lot of different issues there, depending on the configuration of your truck. But the actual, I mean, do I need something that tows 37,000 pounds? No, absolutely not. So anyway, check them out. I think it's been a long time. Ram has been holding off on this refresh for a long time, and I think they look really nice. We had a Ram before, and it was fine. It wasn't perfect for us. The biggest issue we had with the Ram was really the legroom for the kids in the back.
With that middle hump.
Yeah. It has a hump. I don't know if they still have that, but there's like,
it's been a minute since we had a Ram.
So there were some issues for us in that. And, they sort of have the smallest cab unless you get their mega cab, which we didn't have. But anyway, I thought it was really interesting, but I'll link to JD's video so you can check out his thoughts on it, because I think they're really interesting. So what is in your black tank this week?
Nothing.
Everything's good.
I just gave you one about an hour ago, and that's all I got.
You don't have a second one?
I don't. I don't. I mean, there are annoyances. Sure. I'm really tired of
How about now?
Right? This person poking me.
How about now?
I am annoyed that there's not enough sunshine. I'll just give you some annoyances.
The sun is starting to go down.
I'm annoyed that it's not sunny enough here.
It's 4:38 and the sun is.
I know.
Pretty much gone.
I am annoyed.
But the days are getting longer and longer every day.
Oh, every day we get like 30 seconds, sometimes maybe a minute. That's great. I'm annoyed at how cold it is. It's so cold. I'm so tired of the cold. I'm annoyed that I'm annoyed at those things because I live in a location where all of that is inevitable. And I knew that when I signed up for this job. So
sounds like you got a black tank there.
Sounds like I don't want a black tank winter because there are beautiful. It was beautiful when we thought we were going to get snow. And I know my family in Missouri didn't think that snowstorm was so beautiful. It looked lovely. It didn't look great what it did to your roads, but and hunkering down like that and having all those 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 inches of snow. How beautiful is that? But we're not getting any of that here. We're just getting cold, ugly, frozen tundra. And I don't even have a tauntaun to get.
There's a little snow.
So whatever. At least we have toilet paper, milk, and bread. We're fine.
People.
What?
Why do you buy so much milk when it's going to snow?
Here we go. I guess I did.
You can live without milk.
Friends, I guess I found a black tank. Listen, we thought, so it all stayed south. The weather that came through last weekend.
Anybody that watched the weather around here knew it was staying south.
Why were we out of milk in most of our local grocery stores? You people, stop buying more than you need. We just need what we need. Like that is that. So I was, there you go. That's my black tank. Moving on.
What's your fresh tank?
My fresh tank is an app. So you've probably heard us talk about in the mile marker community. We have a cookbook for this year. It's called Make It Easy. It's by Danielle Walker. And I was doing the first week. And I did that this week because we've been so busy.
It's like a meal planning.
It's a meal planning, meal prepping, really easy to make kind of meals, gluten-free, dairy-free, refined sugar-free meals. So I was going to go put my grocery list together and I noticed I'm looking through the book and there's a little QR code and you can scan it and it's called Shop the Book. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So like I scanned it, and she has an app, and I want every cookbook, especially someone who makes multiple cookbooks, to do this. The app is called Shop the Book, and every recipe and every cookbook of hers is in this app. And you click on the cookbook, and you can go and click on the recipe in that book. And then you can go and you can click and say, add to a grocery list. And then it will put it all into a grocery list for you on that app. And it will not only put it into a grocery list, it will also put it into a meal plan. Like there will be a separate tab for your meal plan. Here are all the things that you want to make this week. And then you can go into the grocery list like I did, went to my pantry and went through and selected everything I already had, wiped that all off the list. And all I was left with was the list of the foods that I needed from the recipes that I was making in this book.
Yeah, I had to look it up because she actually developed this. Her corporation developed this app. And I was wondering if maybe they had licensed it from somebody or something like that. So they need to license this to other books. Can you imagine like if a publisher that sells lots of cookbooks or did this one app for all across them, right?
Think about all of the Food Network chefs that have cookbooks out there. Or I'm even thinking about another one I really like is Nom Nom Paleo. I really love all her cookbooks as well. Like if she could have something like that where you could go, because it can get it's really about the organization. And what's amazing about this app too is that when you put it into its list, it categorizes itself: produce, meat, pantry.
You're not just running around the store.
No, and so
realizing, I didn't get this while I was over there. Yeah.
It's such a cool app. And I wish that was something like either universal where you could access under one publisher, like Jason said, like all of their cookbooks.
She should just start getting other books to list on.
I hang out with her on Substack, so I'm gonna send her and be like, listen, Danielle, I need you to get this out to other people. So if I know a lot of you know of her, and I know a lot of you are using her cookbook, and a lot of you are joining Jason and I on our 2025 cookbook, get that app. Get that app. It makes it so much easier. And all 6 of her cookbooks are there. It's fabulous. It's so good.
That's it for this week's episode of the RV Miles podcast.
Yes, it is. And thank you so much for joining us. And also thank you for joining us at Tampa. It was amazing to see so many of you then, and now. If you have any questions again for Jason and I, just give us an email over at editor@rvmiles.com or find us in the RV Miles Facebook group. But until next week, friends, stay healthy. Please keep washing those hands. We're not quite out of cold and flu season yet. And keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.